Okay, we got a big paradigm shift in gaming from Asmongold TV. Okay, let me see.
Hi guys, it's me again, and today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite AAA gaming. We're going to look at where it's been, why it exists right now, and where I think it's going, which is going to be the majority of them into the garbage. I've said this before that if you build 100 bridges and you suck one dick, you're not a bridge builder, you're a dick sucker. But if you suck 100 dicks and you only build one bridge, you're Ubisoft. And the problem now is that we've got a
Bro, Ubisoft used to be good. There's a ton of games that Ubisoft. Okay, all Ubisoft game IPs. Assassin's Creed in the beginning was good. I think The Crew in the beginning was good. Rainbow Six was good. Watch Dogs, meh. It was like it was like GTA, but you can hack people's phones and shit. Assassin's Creed, no. Tom Clancy, whatever. Ghost Recon, what is this? Wildlands, holy shit. Let me see. I don't know. Okay, is this all this new? Rayman was always good. Just Dance, I guess, was fine. Don't know. Tom Clancy, Call Juarez, that was good. Just Dance, Far Cry was generally pretty good. Let me see. It's like 50-50, honestly, like hit or miss. Um, okay.
lot of companies like that because they focus so much on trying to make these games and focusing on making them the most broad audience possible, making them have everything for everyone, that we get to a situation where one size fits none. And I think this has been an ongoing issue. It's been going on, I think, especially in the last like 10 years. I think COVID accelerated the goal with this because of how much more money gaming is making now. COVID was kind of like a multiplier effect on that,
Yeah.
but it's been going on for a while, and I want to explain kind of like where AAA gaming came from because
I forgot what effect that was called. Um, where you have a what was this? You have a is it over there? Where you had a this is like the massive amounts of people, and then you have like a little niche of something that's over here with like a very small audience, and there's like a creator, and he made it, and there's like a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand, maybe like tens of thousands, or maybe hundreds of thousands of people in here that made this. You know, this is these people like this thing. This is the massive amount of people that like not this thing. And then once the creator decides to try to make the thing for these people, everybody like flocks to this thing, and it pushes out all of the original people that liked it in the first place. And then what seems to happen is that like this thing is no longer this thing anymore. Um, it's just not. So like the best examples are like anytime there was like a video game IP that is getting like a show made after it. You know, look at Halo, look at Lord of the Rings, look at a lot of the Star Wars shit. Jesus Christ. Um, yeah, they are shadows of their former selves. They are not. Uh, they are no longer what drew me to those things anymore. Because you're making all of a sudden now your core is just not a part of the group anymore. They got pushed out because of everybody else. It's like, okay, that's fine. I could get out of the way. It's like Star Wars is no longer really good. Uh, like anything new Lord of the Rings is pretty much bad. Halo, the show was like horrible. And there's a ton of other examples.
Back in the day, we're talking about the 90s, even the 80s, right, with arcades and the original consoles. But the 90s and the 2000s and a little bit into the 2010s, right, and not all the way, as we all know, is that AAA gaming was a stamp of approval, a seal of quality.
Yeah, it was.
And it's funny now because it's almost the opposite. It's like, well,
Yeah, AAA gaming now is, it's like, you remember like Pirates of the Caribbean? You have like the black spot. It's like, oh, the black spot of AAA. Oh, is it going to be live service dog shit that wastes your time? Oh, are they going to take 3, 4, 5 months to fix the one little line of code in the game that they could easily fix in like 2 minutes? But no, it has to go through umpteen million levels of approval to fix the one line of code. It's horrible.
this is a AAA game that's coming from this big studio, so we know that it's going to have a number of annoying features. There's probably going to be, you buy the game on Steam, and then you have to log on to their additional launcher in order to actually play it.
Oh yeah, buy the game on Steam, but you have to make an account with PlayStation. You gotta make an account with Xbox. You gotta make an account with Nintendo. Is any Nintendo shit on Steam? I don't know. Who cares? You have to make an account with our website. Ooh, it's like, why? What benefit do I get from making an account somewhere else? I already have an account with Steam.
All of these very, very annoying things. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people don't enjoy that. And the other big issue that AAA gaming has is that basically a lot of studios, and I think companies are doing this in general, this is something I think that we're also seeing in movies as well, where you're seeing these movies that are being made with these gigantic budgets. Like everything is CGI. There's like all these A-list actors in it. And like the movie has a budget of like over $100 million maybe, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know really what.
Yeah, but who really knows like where the budget, how it's actually like divided up anymore nowadays? Because uh, what I am learning is like a good chunk of the budget is actually just going to like a singular actor or something like that, like just to put butts in seats. It's like, oh, Tom Cruise gonna be in it. Okay, that's pretty cool. Who else? I don't even know who else to like. I look forward to every fucking celebrity has to put their little stamp of approval on. I'm a lefty person or a righty. Well, most Hollywood is like left, but whatever. It's like I don't care about your personal opinions if you're a celebrity. If I see you anywhere else besides a movie, I don't give a shit about you. To be honest, yeah.
What average movie budgets are, but it's probably even more than that in some cases. And then it makes back like a fraction of that money. And the reason what that does is it makes it to where every single movie has to be Spider-Man. Every single movie has to be attached to an IP that can be attached to a line of toys
Hmm.
that can be sold to kids. And so now you don't get as many movies that take risks as much because those risks cost
Mm.
more money and it's harder to recoup the money back from the risk.
I actually never really noticed that. Every movie has to be a type of movie that is, rated E for everyone so that you can appeal to the kid audience and make toys and merch and shit from all the little cutesy characters in there. Um, that's probably not every movie, but that is a good chunk of movies, or at least all the ones with the marketing budget, with a sizable marketing budget. Like I'm sure there's like a lot of like Sundance Film Festival type movies that are like more adult themed or like have like deal with like adult taboo issues, but nobody is really going out to like Sundance Film Festival. That's like the like a tier below like Hollywood or something. I don't know. I just know it's like the it's like a diet Hollywood more or less. I don't know really how to describe it besides diet Hollywood. You can get like better storytelling in there because, it's not as the movies that are made at Sundance are not as dependent on having or appealing to like a child audience.
risks because you've lost the market of DVDs. And so this has been going on now for quite a while with movies, and I think video games now are starting to copy the trend. And what you're seeing now is that everything is two. Everything
I really hope they don't fucking start to bastardize like video game IPs and start turning them into like movies. I know they kind of do that with like Marvel and Star Wars and uh like they've already started to try to do it with like TV shows. And there's a lot of great stories in video games, but the reason they're good is because they deal with um they don't treat the audience like they're stupid. They deal with adult issues in such a way that it's relatable. It's like not every video game has to be Star Wars Outlaws. Okay, like I don't know anything about Star Wars Outlaws. I don't know anything about the story or whatever. Maybe the story was good, but for the most part, all I see is like down thumbs from that game. That's all I see.
is the next one of something that already previously existed. And of course, I mean, I say this, and if you guys can see what I'm playing, playing Path of Exile 2. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but that is kind of what my point is that I think that studios like Grinding Gear Games, studios like Warhorse that are making Kingdom Come Deliverance, and other studios that are the more double A like quality studios, I think that the real future is going to be those studios making the AAA games. It's like
Well, I think one of the reasons that they can do those type of games is because they don't have as many eyes on them and not as much pressure from I don't know investors or anything like that. So they can get away with doing more dealing with more like adult themes is literally it. But once the game becomes so popular that it can't help but to penetrate the I don't know the normie membrane of society, then all of a sudden it gets known as, oh, this game is good. Everybody wants to start playing it. And then, you know, because all these modern day AAA games or game developers used to be like the single and the double A game developers. Like back in the day, like 15 years ago. They all used to be good, but they got too big. There's too much red tape and there's too many like gateways to like get things done. Like nobody can be like too offensive or anything like that. It's sad.
instead of a AAA publisher, a AAA developer making multiple AAA games, it's going to be one AA publisher, one AA studio making one AAA game. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot more. And I think that whenever you really look at, because like especially live service games, you have to have such a finger on the pulse of the actual community of the game. You have to have everybody that's working there really understand it. I think that's what Blizzard had back in the 2000s with Warcraft. And if you look at any of the most popular video game franchises and you look at the people that make the games, the people that make the games are usually very good at those games. For example, like the Final Fantasy 16 guy that, you know, went and one-shot the boss in front of a big audience before the game came out. That was really cool. And it showed that, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. He actually knows how to play his own game.
Yeah.
Which in some cases, like Diablo 4, turned out to not necessarily be the case.
Oh, geez, I remember that.
Anyway, what I think has happened is that you've seen these studios like Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft is it's the worst offender, where they're spending $100 million on a game and they're expecting a 20% return. Because
Let me see something real quick. That's a pretty big offender. Ubisoft. That is a pretty big offender. Oh my god. Wait, it's $2.50? Oh my god. This is what is this? Like a 2-year dip? Boys, buy the dip. This just shit used to be $20 a share. When was this? What game came out at this point? Oh, wait, it just changed. It went up by 2 cents. It hurt me.
Would you rather have 20% on $10 million dollars or 20% on $100 million dollars, right? And so that's the logic that they use, that they're going to just spend more money so they can multiply the largest amount of money possible. And I think that what's happening now is that that is true, but it's also that you double down on a loss when it's not. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really the situation that we're seeing a lot of these studios run into when they release a game that's effectively a dud. And I think the reason why these games are getting released and they're trash is because consumer interests are changing so much faster than they used to. So think about it.
Have the consumer interest have the consumer interest been changing, or have they just always been the same? That's what I'm curious. Like, are people wanting like so much more different things now than they did back then? I mean, it's a fucking form of entertainment, piece of media. People want to be entertained. So, I mean, it's kind of like entertainment is subjective, understandably, but whenever you take like a survey and everybody fills out the survey and you see an overwhelming chunk of people like a certain thing, then all of a sudden stuff doesn't really become subjective anymore. It's at least in terms of like your target audience.
It like this. There are a lot of games that are in development for, I don't know, like 6 years, for example. 6 years or 4 years in development is very, very common. Think about how much different things were 4 years ago. Well, 4 years ago, we had COVID. Everything was totally different. People were addicted to Genshin Impact, and everybody was spending all day on the internet. Well, you can't necessarily develop a game around that, that context. And 6 years ago, if you started making a game, well, if you just got inspired by Fortnite, man, you're a little bit late now, aren't you? And
Yeah.
so what we're seeing now is that
Or in the case of Concord, oh, 6 years ago you got inspired by Overwatch. You're trying to come out with something else. Oh, you kind of had it right, but you really didn't because look at this. Oh, it's still booming. It's still booming. So people still like Overwatch, just with a different skin.
we're seeing smaller studios, these double A studios. I think the best example of this too that you can use besides grinding gear games is Larian, who made Baldur's Gate 3. Is that Baldur's Gate 3 took an incredibly long time to make, but it didn't follow any trends because it didn't need to. There were no like outside pressures, outside investors. Being a publicly traded company was not causing them to have to, monetize the game in a way that was annoying. It was just them making a good game and then delivering it to players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think AAA game studios have, instead of becoming, too big to fail, they've become too big to succeed. And I've said this
Yeah.
before, and I think that it becomes increasingly more true every year. And you're seeing these massive studios laying.
Too big to fail versus too big to succeed nowadays. I mean, bro, they got like so many different metrics that they use to try to figure out what players do and don't like. I have no idea how it's possible for these guys to fail with the amount of tools that they have at their disposal. But lo and behold, they still fail game after game. I like, what are you guys doing over there? What metrics are you using? What's your target audience? Oh, it's everybody. Okay. How is your target audience everybody and you still manage to miss the target?
Off. Like, I didn't even know this. Ubisoft has 20,000 employees. How do you do that? There are so many people that work probably at these studios that have jobs that are, not particularly like super involved with like the actual creation of the product. And I think that's very obvious considering that they fire bunches of people and the products keep being made. So the issue is that you have a massive overstaffing and then you have massive budgets And then you have massive expectations and a priority system that's created by people who don't actually have the player's interests in mind. And what I'm saying by that is, I think a good example of this is if you look at a lot of the, like video games that have like actors in them. Like I think Senua's Saga 2 is a really great example of a game that is made for an audience of gamers that doesn't really exist. So obviously the game was popular for some people, and there were a good number of people that bought and played the game. But the reality is that it really wasn't that big, and they probably didn't recoup their costs. And what happens is that games journalists and games media, and I think just the games industry itself, likes to gas itself up about these types of games. But I don't actually think that these are the types of things that players are actually looking for.
Anymore. These are the things that players are not looking for anymore. Because back in the day, before the internet was big, before all the social media influencers, who did we have to go to figure out if a game was good or bad or anything like that? Well, we had to go to the magazines, Game Informer. What was the other one? IGN. There's a couple other ones I forgot, like PC Gaming Magazine. That was one. Nintendo Power. That was another one. I think, did Sony have one? I think Sony had a magazine. Bro, anytime I went to the store, I was super excited to like go down the magazine aisle and look at all the video game magazines to figure out, oh, what's read, like just look at some of the articles, look at the game reviews. Oh, these guys are really cool. They get to play video games or write about video games all day. These guys are so cool. Back in the day, they were cool because gamers needed it. There was no influencer job back then. Now there is an influencer job. You know, you get Joe Schmo that just doesn't do anything but play the game all day, and then after 100, 200, 300 hours, he could just give his unbiased. Well, he could just give his review of the game after he played like 300 hours, and it's like, oh, okay, the game's good or bad after 300 hours. Okay, you could just latch on to someone that you like. Like, you don't need the games journalists anymore. You have so many people like trying to do the video game influencer thing that the video game journalist is outdated. It's not needed anymore.
And I think that's reflected in the sales, and this happens over and over and over. People play video games because they like playing video games. While there are exceptions, they are very few and far between. And so what's happened is that these studios have convinced themselves they need to do all these things that players don't really care about, and they do them at the expense of the things that players do really care about, which is replayability, actual play, like playing, like the experience you have playing the game in the minute-to-minute basis. And I think that really another great example of this, I've been playing like on top of like Path of Exile 2, I've also been playing off stream Stalker 2. And holy shit, that game is great. And it's made by, again, a double A, a smaller studio, but they've come together to really make an incredible game. And I think having a like a focus. I remember, there was like a really good metaphor that like in Game of Thrones, King Robert was like, what's stronger, 5 armies or 1 army? And like really it's the 1 army that's a lot stronger. And I think that's what we're starting to see a lot more with these games, is you're seeing these studios that are focusing entirely on making one defined product for a defined audience that they have a finger on the pulse of, and they're able to deliver a product to them that meets their needs and exceeds them in a lot of cases. That is the future for games. And I think also what's going to make this even more the future is the fact that you're going to see a lot of these studios, like the layoffs are going to keep happening. And the reason why is
The reason why layoffs are going to keep happening is because no one is going to buy the slop that AAA games is putting out. The whole pulse on the gaming audience. There's like this there's this thing that I think is happening or can happen or will happen or I don't know is happening of like, you know how like everyone's like connected to the internet and shit like that. Like you could see like anybody's social media and like you could see like the things they like or whatever, and there's a bunch of things on like the back end that a lot of companies, like, they have so much information um about every single person on the internet. Like, oh, you like this and this anime, you like these and these shows, you were shopping for this and this, you spent X amount of time looking at this. There are all these uh unknowable statistics that some of these like social media companies have, that if a game developer were to like get a hold of that, I would imagine, to figure out like what is trending, what people like, I think that would be a deadly game developer that can make a really good game. But it feels like a big game developer like Ubisoft, when they make a game that tries to like the target market is like everybody, they tried to take out the prickly parts of what everyone is like looking at. Like if someone's like all the taboo subjects of, I don't know, like take like a basic example of like the hero's journey. Like up until the climax of the hero's journey, the main character is just getting shit on for the most part. You know, there's like the pain and gain montage of like them trying to like overcome some sort of like little mini obstacles, and then there's a climax and then a conclusion, and that's like the basic gist of like a story. But it seems like the hero's journey basic formula has been softened. Like the amount of struggle that a main character has to go through to overcome something is just, it doesn't hit home a lot of the time anymore. It just doesn't.
Because of different types of ways that you can effectively, like, it's not really all AI, but in some cases it is. If you can have one person do the job of three people through some sort of procedural generation or some form of technology, well, then you're going to have that happen. And as that happens, it becomes easier and it lowers that bar to entry for the quality that people expect whenever they're paying $70 or $60 for a video game. And so that's where I think AAA gaming is going to go. I think AAA gaming is going to have to become like, I don't know, they're going to have to scale down. And I feel like there are a few exceptions, right? We're always going to have Rockstar, From Software, Capcom, stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. But I think that many of these other studios are probably going to have to narrow down on one or maybe just a couple of IPs and then develop products for just those IPs rather than trying to release a bunch of different products and just like, well, if we sell a million of them for $10, we're going to make $10 million. Well, wow, why don't we sell a million of them at $1 million or something like that, right? Some variation of this.
Yeah.
And it's just like the idea that, well, we can just keep making more money because there's no sense of market saturation. Well, I think that there's very clearly been a market saturation, hasn't there?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, express itself right now as, you see a lot of games that just don't have the marketing. There's just so much of an economy of attention. There's only so many people that can pay attention to so many games. And I think, again, when you have like your story game or whatever that is focused on, motion capturing facial movements, that just doesn't fucking matter to a lot of people. Like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't think a lot of people do. It's not
Yeah. Like the motion capture. Wait, let me hit this again.
game or whatever that is focused on, motion capturing facial movements. That just doesn't fucking matter to a lot of people.
Yes, that is pretty true. However, I'm just gonna do like the outlier thing. For the most part, that doesn't matter in the context of gaming in general. But there are some games that can take advantage of this, of like the motion capture of like a face or something. If you're trying to play like a story game, something like some sort of over the shoulder like story game where there's like some point of like combat and then a little pause of like, and then you do some like interpersonal like gameplay of like just chit chatting, and it's like, ooh, this is the good choice, it's the bad choice. What do you call it? Like Mass Effect used to do. Um, and my best example would have been uh, LA Noir. That was a great game that utilized the whole like facial thing, having really detailed like facial movements and whatnot. Um, but I mean, overall, I would agree that nobody really gives a shit about the next, like, oh, we can now control lighting even better. We can make it reflect off of 12 different surfaces to like light up a room a certain way. It's like, yeah, but how does that make the game better? Well, I mean, if you're playing like an old school Splinter Cell game, I can see how that could be better, but in general, that doesn't really make a game better. Like if you're gonna develop a piece of technology and peddle it as like this new game breaking thing, you better come out with like a game to like really put that in as like the showcase feature. Facial recognition or motion capture, LA Noir, being able to like manipulate light and shit, Splinter Cell. I think stuff like that was cool. Um, there's probably like a ton of other examples, but like you can't just come out with like all these updates and upgrades to technology and just shove them into the game and just expect the game to be good when the story is like shallow as fuck.
Like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't think a lot of people do. It's nice when the games have it, but I'm certainly not going to play a game because of it. But if a game has good gameplay, I will play a game because of it, even if the face models go like this. I don't give a shit. And I don't think most other people do either.
It depends. If it's like a very like combat centric game, then I don't really give a shit. But if it's like a story driven game, then I kind of do give a shit because I don't want to see some idiot contorting their face because some people couldn't get like the face animation shit right. I mean, come on.
Except for other journalists and people in the industry. So what we're going to see more of is we're going to see these AA studios that, and I think that another reason why this is happening too is like distribution and publishing. Uh, Being able to publish a game, think about how many hoops you had to jump through in order to get your game on Nintendo 64, or in order to get your game on Super Nintendo, or even something like the GameCube. It was much harder to do than now, where all you have to do is, put your game out on Steam and then, post it on Baldi's subreddit. And if the people like it, maybe he'll watch it. And then it'll be in a YouTube clip. It'll get 100,000 views or more. And so that's pretty easy to do, right? Especially compared to, trying to work around, a Japanese company's expectations in the year 2003. Much harder to do. And so nowadays, I think you're seeing much more people able to get into that space and grow in that space much more quickly. And that's,
I mean, yeah, especially with the advent of Unreal 5.69, Unreal 6, Unreal 7. The Unreal Engine is getting better and better, and it's quote unquote getting easier to make video games. Well, then, where's all the good games? You can't come out with like a better version of Unreal, and then for like the last 2-3 years, all the games that use Unreal, they're all dog shit because nobody knows how to tell a story. Like, what are we doing?
that's why you're going to see those AA studios that focus and narrow in on just like that one solid, really good product. That is where I think the future is going to be for AAA games. And I think that also AAA studios, this is another big problem, is that, what I was saying before with Ubisoft, they've sucked a lot of dicks. And the problem now is that residual taste in people's let's go ahead and just stop right there. People think that their next games are going to be bad
Yeah.
because their previous games have been bad.
Yes. So like for me, the timeline kind of goes like in the beginning, Ubisoft was like good, they could do no wrong. And then some games came out and then it was like kind of questionable. And then the games got like worse. Maybe there would be like a good game like here or there or something like that. But, over the course of time, the games just got worse and worse. And yeah, that's why we have, why the stocks look like down stonks. It's down. Nobody gives a shit about Ubisoft anymore.
And so there is a reputational damage that happens that exists beyond the lifespan of the game that has problems. And that's effectively what I'm trying to say. And so what I think that we're seeing with Ubisoft and other studios is that they have this reputational damage, this generational reputational damage. Blizzard's another great example of
Mm-hmm.
this. And it makes it to where every game that they release is taken with such a massive grain of salt that a lot of people write it off before it even releases. They don't even know what it is. Oh, it's a Blizzard game. It's a Ubisoft game. It's EA. Of course it's going to be garbage.
Yeah,
And so,
bro. I talked to some of my friends that I work with. I have no idea how they are still drinking the Kool Aid of buying sports games. It is baffling to me, and they're like about my age too. But I don't know. I can't really like shit on them too bad because it's like it just goes back to the whole thing of like uh you can't be so like judgmental and critical of every single solitary thing because if you do that, you end up liking nothing and everything is just bad and like doomer become like doom what's it called? Like black pilled or doomer pilled? I don't fucking know. And you can't really enjoy anything anymore. But I mean that route also seems pretty stupid. Um because I mean at the end of the day I still like like video games, I still like playing them and whatnot, but it's I don't know. It's a pain in the dick.
newer studios that focus on one product don't necessarily have that reputation, or at least in a lot of cases they don't. And if they do, they go out of business, right? And I think that's what happens in some cases. But that's where I think the future is of AAA gaming. I think that they have to narrow down and focus more on a number of individual IPs rather than trying to just get a 20% return on as many things as possible. I think that there is very clearly a market saturation. There's very clearly a market cap, and I think that we're beginning to explore that reality now. And I think that's become evident after about, I'd say 2022, after like the COVID level of like internet usage and video game usage kind of went back down. And then
Mm-hmm.
also it wasn't recovering at the 20% or 10% year over year expectations that a lot of tech companies were, getting investments in, under the expectation of. And so what I think is going to happen is, yeah, you're going to have a lot of these AAA studios that just simply can't meet the expectations of such a massive ship. It's like how easy is it to turn a Titanic versus a Viking longboat, right? And that's why
Yeah.
you see small games like Valheim doing a whole lot better than big games like Skull and Bones. And
Yeah.
there it is, a quadruple A game,
Yeah.
1A for each player. And
I mean, I think it's hilarious how they unironically call it the first quadruple A game. Are you kidding me?
so that's what happens. That's where I think things are going to go, and I think the future that we're really going to see is going to be in the indie studios and the double A studios that focus in and fixate on creating one AAA high quality experience game, like Path of Exile 2, Stalker 2, um, Baldur's Gate 3, stuff like that. And I think that's going to be the future of games. And you know what I think? I think that is such a good thing. That is an amazing, great thing because those studios have a much better understanding of what the players want, and I'm a player, and that's what I want. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I thought I'd make this video and talk about this topic because I see a lot of people bringing it up very regularly, and I wanted to give my 2 cents. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Okay. We've um as far as like the paradigm shift goes, uh, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say of like what's gonna be the future because it's not like these AAA companies are gonna. It's not like the AAA companies are going nowhere. They're still around. They're still on life support with their live service games. Who knows if they could ever actually come out with like if they could actually come out with like a new IP. Probably not. They'll probably make like a sequel of something, latch on to some existing IP. Uh, I mean, one would hope that it would be up to the double A's and the single A developers to like trudge through the waters and make a good game, but I just don't know. Um, I don't know. What does everybody think? Like quadruple A games, one A free to play. Triple A gaming is like Hollywood now. No original thought. Everything's a sequel, prequel, remake. Yeah. Some of the best games on the market are from small indie developers. Yep. Massive uprising of the gamer, the voter, and the people. Um, yeah. Oh, what is this? There's a huge Steam sale going on right now. Older AAA games for 80, 95% off. Lots of already cheap indie games, 30+% off. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, everybody's saying single A, double A, but the moment GTA 6 drops, the moment Elder Scrolls 6 drops, everyone's gonna go clamoring back to like the big boys, provided they get their shit straight. So I don't know. Hopefully there'll be some more good games coming out. We've had like a crazy year already, and like last year was like decent, but here's hoping for more new games to come out that are good. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, I like whenever Aspen does like the little 1v1s. I think it's, I don't know, more thoughtful. Just having like a little conversation. But yeah, overall cool video. But that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys on the next one later.